Hey there guys, how's it going? Now that October is finally here, I can finally show you a new horror game I've been working on for a little bit in GameMaker. This is a top-down third-person horror shooter in which you are tasked with eliminating a strange threat that seems to have taken refuge inside an old mansion. Occasionally it would go out and kill livestock in the nearby area, so that is why you finally decided to go there, armed and ready, to eliminate the threat once and for all. This was new territory for me as I had never made a top-down 2D game with pseudo 3D shadows before, so I opted to make it 3D. I started with this little guy, armed with a long-range rifle. I wanted him to face towards the mouse position at all times, which can be a bit tricky in 3D, so I used an extension called Mouse Collisions 3D. It seems to be no longer on the GameMaker marketplace as I wanted to put a link to it. I have used this extension many times in the past, and it's just absolutely great. I later opted out to add controller support as I wanted to play this game with my sister on Halloween. So after that, I added some tiles, walls, a few props, and everything was looking fine, but I wanted to go a little bit further than this. I wanted to give the player some kind of light source, like a torch, how original, and to make everything feel a bit more 3D, I used normal maps for every texture in the scene. To do this, I created the geometry in Blender, saved its normals to a texture, and then loaded each normal texture into the shader I used for the lighting. I have a full-length tutorial on how to add normal maps on my channel as well. Then for those awesome 3D shadows on the walls, I actually had no idea how to do that. What I eventually ended up doing was creating a perspective FOV camera that faced straight down. I set its FOV to 90 degrees and made these super tall wall models that I would use for the shadows. These tall walls are then drawn onto a secondary surface called the wall surface. The lighting shader then takes black and white values of this wall surface and uses that to create shadows. I'm not sure if this was an already established method, but it seems to work pretty alright in my use case. I also used this surface to add a slight Gaussian blur effect to the post-processing surface to emphasize the fact that the player has no idea what is in the next room. Now I also wanted to add some openable doors, which was just a pain in the ass for some reason. The doors I added were these grand double doors that were just a pain to figure out. Either only one door would open or some completely random, unrelated door would open somewhere on the map, which was really annoying. But eventually I figured it out. You can now open and close double doors so that it's actually really cool. Then of course I added some sound effects such as different footsteps for each material and wind sounds for a better atmosphere. I then added some shooting to the game, which I did as follows. The player carries a bolt-action rifle that holds 5 rounds. Each time you fire, you hold the left shoulder button on your gamepad to pull the bolt back. When you release it, you slide the bolt back into place. You can also hold the left shoulder button and press the X or square button to load individual rounds. So, now that you can shoot, it was time to add something to shoot. I found a low-poly 3D model of a rigged person because I totally suck at making person models. I removed the head to make it look a bit more uncanny and a bit more monstrous and unhuman, as I didn't want to add human enemies to the game. I then created some random keyframes to make it look all freaky. I added some very basic AI to it as well. Once you are in its line of sight, it has spotted you, and when you look at it, it stops moving, but the second you move away from it or it leaves your line of sight, it begins to move. It has 3 aggression levels, 1 for normal, 1 aggressive, and 1 desperate, and it takes 3 shots to kill. Mostly. And that is where I left it for now. I'm going to add some more enemy types in time for Halloween, and then I will show you the real final result, but for now this little showcase will have to make do.